And I don't even know if these are credible allegations anyway. So this is Stefan's response, when he says, 1, I oppose eugenics as an egregious state violation of the non-aggression principle. Well, that was kind of predictable, wasn't it?
Again, nobody's talking eugenics, we're just talking freedom, but freedom has a eugenics component to it, inevitably. And there are estimates that range between 40 and 60% of IQ is genetic. Genetics often considered to be between sort of 50 to 60 to 80% of one's final IQ. Again, assuming there's some genetics involved in this, and IQ does appear to be, depending on who you ask, 50 to 70 to 80% hereditary. Asians have the highest IQ. Let's put aside Ashkenazi Jews for the moment, but Asians have the highest IQ, followed by whites, who have a little bit of a lower IQ than Asians on average, followed by Hispanics, who have a lower IQ than whites on average, followed by blacks, who have a lower IQ than Hispanics on average. Seems to be Asians at the top, and then Caucasians, and then American blacks and Hispanics, and then Sub-Saharan blacks, and I think even lower is the Aboriginals in the outback of Australia. I think they have the lowest recorded IQ. And so that tends to be the hierarchy. At least have an IQ test for people coming in. That's, at least have an IQ test, and it has to be at least 120. Why? Because we already have lots of 115s here already. So why on earth would it be incompatible, potentially jihadi, potentially don't speak the language? Like, it'd have to be at least maybe 125 or more, right? We got a whole bunch of people with IQs 120, 130, so 135. Okay, 135, you're in. And none of this, my wife has an IQ of 90. Sorry, because you're going to blend that together, and we're going to get somebody with an IQ of 100. So you and you alone, high IQ, in you come. So the only way to have prevented this migrant crisis would have been to enforce the laws. I ask you that seriously. What would have happened if they had enforced the laws not allowing the migrants in?
Well, laws, of course. Or
nope. Not laws. You already have laws. They didn't the books didn't march down to the beach and do anything.
Enforcement of the laws.
Which means what? So the guns would have had to come out.
Yeah.
The guns would have to come out, and people might have to get shot. People say, well, if people are not allowed to come into the country, that is the initiation of the use of force, right?
Right.
Now, I completely agree with that. I completely and totally agree with that. And so simply by looking at putting a barrier around America to prevent people from coming into America and saying, well, that's the only initiation of force that matters, that's ridiculous. And people say to me, well, as you say, right, well, it's the initiation of force to have people not live in the country. It is. It is.
Well, not everyone.
Because if they come into the country, statistically, they are going to cause a greater initiation of force by massive consumption of the welfare state and dedication to a party that itself is dedicated to expanding government to the nth degree, which is the leftists.
So this is Stefan's response, when he says, 1, I oppose eugenics as an egregious state violation of the non-aggression principle. Again, nobody's talking eugenics, we're just talking freedom, but freedom has a eugenics component to it, inevitably. 3, I am not a white nationalist.
I go to Poland, what is it, 99% white? I've spoken against white nationalism, but I'm an empiricist. I'm an empiricist. I went to the country. I saw how it was like. I've spoken out against white nationalism, but I'm an empiricist. I'm listening. I'm listening to my experiences. Can't argue with the facts. Can't argue with the reality.
First of all, I've always been skeptical of the ideas of white nationalism, of identitarianism, and white identity. However, I am an empiricist, and I could not help but notice that I could have peaceful, free, easy, civilized, and safe discussions in what is essentially an all-white country.
I do not agree that Stefan Molyneux is even a white nationalist.
People, Steph's identified empirical facts about racial differences. He's a racist. No, Mother Nature's a racist. I'm just shining the light.
Well, that was kind of predictable, wasn't it?